Hello, today we have a returning guest. Her name is Farah Hillou. Last time she talked about her personal journey as a mother. Today we'll be talking about Farah the expert. Hello, Farah. How are you?
Hi.
Welcome
I'm great,
back.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me again. It's a pleasure to be here with
Thank
you.
you. Tell me, what do you do? Like, what's your profession?
Yeah. So I have been in the field of nutrition for about 20 years now, and I feel like I sound pretty old, but I'm not. So I specialize in integrative and functional nutrition. So what that means is the functional medicine or functional nutrition aspect of it is we are always trying to dig into the root cause of why someone is experiencing certain symptoms, why they have specific diseases. So rather than just taking medications, which can help, but many times they are putting a band-aid on the symptom, just suppressing the symptom. We're trying to understand where and what is the imbalance that's going on in the body, and then treating it the holistical or integrative way through diet, so using food as medicine, things like mental health, emotional well-being, exercise, so the more of the natural aspect. So integrating all of these together to help the person get better and to manage these imbalances that are taking place in the body. So
The natural way.
in the natural way, but to gain a deep understanding of really where the imbalances is, and we see the body as a whole. So rather than when you're maybe you've got migraines, you're going to go see, let's say, a neurologist. So we see the brain as linked to the gut, as linked to the liver. So the whole body is a whole.
Yeah, they're all connected in a way.
It's all connected. Yeah. So what's going on at the gut level is going to affect your hormones. It's going to affect your brain. It's going to affect your energy. Your hormones are dictated by, what you're exposed to from the environment, your sleep, stress, how stress, plays such a drastic and significant role in our overall health. So we look at the body again as just one intertwined body that's, any imbalance in one part is likely caused or will cause other imbalances elsewhere.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I also wanted to know why the gut? Why did you choose gut? What took you on that path to reach to the gut?
To be honest, actually, I came across functional medicine while I was researching gut health and thyroid health as well. Because I have dealt with gut issues for such a long period of time. And it's the general things like bloating and, nausea and just discomfort that so many times you're like, okay, this is my normal now, but it's not normal. These are all signs. Your body is trying to tell you that something is not right. So the more I started researching and reading, I had a lot of aha moments in wow, like we weren't taught this in university. And I had been in nutrition, I had done my undergrad in nutrition, my master's in nutrition, and there were things that we weren't, taught. So I felt like I was learning all over again, and I was learning things that resonated with me personally that I could apply to myself, but things that, I was hearing a lot of people complain from. And the more I dug into gut health, the more I'm like, okay, this is it. We need to fix the gut. And the fact that there's so much research now that's being done in this field, and the fact that it's been linked to mental health, depression, anxiety, autoimmune conditions, things like multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis. It's linked to autism. It's linked to fertility, pregnancy, heart disease, cancer, pretty much everything and anything. Skin conditions. So ultimately, anytime I'm, working with a client one-on-one, gut health is always something I inquire about, but also tend to work on. Even things like weight. So many people want to manage their weight better. So we ultimately look at the gut. Balancing hormones, look at the gut. So I felt that really it's so centered to our overall health that we can't overlook it anymore. We have got to it has to be one of our priorities whenever we address health.
Yeah. But how is it the gut is connected to our emotions?
Okay. So we are made up, or our gut contains billions of microbes, okay, mostly bacteria. So we're more microbes than we are human cells. So the genes that make up these microbes, outnumber our own genes. So these microbes are found not only in our gut, but also on our skin, in our respiratory tract, so everywhere, pretty much. Now, the brain and the gut talk to one another, so it's a bi-directional communication. So let's say you have an important event or presentation. So it's not unnatural that you feel a bit nervous, and then you have stomach aches. You feel like, you might need to go to the bathroom, or, you feel nauseous. You have no appetite. So again, it's, like
It's
that
connected,
anxiety,
yeah.
exactly. But also vice versa. So when there's imbalances there in the gut microbes, and there are so many different species, it becomes so complicated and so complex. But when there's an overgrowth, let's say, of unhealthy bacteria compared to healthy bacteria, so that imbalance is called dysbiosis, then that could definitely trigger anxiety. So, it can trigger anxiety in even a short term, but even in a long term as well. So there's what we call the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is basically connecting, the brain to the gut. And like I said, so the signals that are going up to the brain are actually more than the signals coming from the brain to the gut. So the fact that, what's going on in the gut is sending signals to everywhere in the body, including the brain. So
is that imbalance could be from food or from vitamins, lack of vitamins, or?
it can be caused by a variety of different factors. So diet, 100%. So a high intake of refined sugars, the white stuff, white sugar, white pasta, white rice, white bread, a lot of vegetable oils. We're consuming a lot of not only fried foods, but even what was believed to be healthy oils. The fact that we're over consuming them is also damaging our health, particularly our gut lining, and those bacteria, because the bacteria basically are feeding on what we are eating. Exactly. So high intake of sugar, high intake of processed foods, high intake of junk foods, even things like soft drinks, like I said, vegetable oils, not enough fiber, not enough plant-based foods, so a lot of even meat. So it can definitely shift that diversity. And there's a lot of research to show that in the long term, we need to be very consistent with our diet in order to cause more of a long-term shift. But even some research has shown that if you eat a plant-based diet, let's say, or more fiber, there are some changes that happen within 24 hours. So
yeah, I was just gonna ask you, people who switch to vegan diet, they say their body is cleansing somehow toxins and all of that. Is that how it works?
well, they are eating more fiber, ideally through legumes, whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and bacteria is feeding on the fiber. But vegan diets can also still be not very healthy. Yeah. You can still have a lot of vegan junk food. So it really depends. A lot of processed plant-based foods. So there are a lot of alternatives now, which is great, but also a lot of these are processed, right? Vegan cheese, vegan burgers, so a lot of these can be processed. But you were asking me, so what can affect our gut microbes? So diet is one of them. Stress, so what's going on in the brain, in the body, that stress and anxiety, our long working hours, our fast-paced lives is affecting our gut in a negative way. Toxins, okay, so toxins, again, what we're exposed to. Think of your skin as a giant mouth. So we're putting on our skin all these body beauty care products, even detergents, can be toxic, okay? Nutrient deficiencies, so, healthy fats, things like zinc, for example. There are a lot of nutrients that we need in order to support a healthy gut. And the fact that our diet is not consisting of a lot of these nutrients is also negatively affecting in general, what's going on at the gut level. So diet plays a big role, but also our lifestyles. So our exposures, toxins, a lot of food intolerances. So many people now complaining, they can't handle dairy or they can't handle gluten. So these intolerances are adding to the burden of, negative things that's happening at the gut level.
Yeah, I have a question regarding gluten. Gluten was there for years. Why is it now a big deal? So, what triggered that?
It's the processing of wheat or gluten, the way it's processed. There's been such a radical shift in that. So many people nowadays are not able to handle gluten simply because of the way it's processed, but also because of the, let's say, the damage that could have been done to their gut. So their gut, to start off with, is not functioning the way it should. So it's more likely to, let's say, not tolerate certain foods.
Okay.
So when we talk about gut healing, there are definitely certain foods that we want to stay away from, at least while we heal the gut. Gluten being one, dairy being another. And sometimes it can be specific from individual to individual. And this is also the beauty of functional medicine, is that each person is their own self. So, what could apply for myself might not necessarily apply to you or somebody else. So we always go, by each person. It doesn't mean that we have to avoid certain foods indefinitely, but it has to be tailored to each individual. Yeah.
Okay, so now we understand what gut is. Thank you. We also want to know, how is it affecting women or mothers?
So when we talk about fertility, first and foremost, fertility, or women or couples who are struggling to conceive, doctors never talk to them about the gut. But it's really important to address it. Okay, there is a lot of research now to show that individuals who are seeking, let's say, or who are struggling to conceive do have imbalances at the gut level. So we have to work on the gut. We have to work on detoxifying the body, of course, ideally a year before. So we always say, 6 months before someone's planning pregnancy, to really work on eating better, but not to detox, because detox has to come earlier because we're trying to get rid of a lot of toxins. So there is a lot of research to show that gut can affect fertility. But when the mother, or let's say when the lady is pregnant, previously it was believed that babies, while they're in their womb, in the mom's womb, are not exposed to her gut microbiome. Okay, so think of, again, our gut microbiome as our personal print as well, the same way we have a fingerprint. So each one of us, again, has a different gut microbiome. So recent research does show that there is some DNA, a microbial or bacterial genes or DNA that crosses through the placenta. So again, this is exciting new research, but the main way that the baby gets inoculated with this bacteria is through delivery. Okay, so let's say the vaginal delivery versus cesarean. Babies born via cesarean tend to get inoculated with bacteria from the skin, mother's skin, and the environment, let's say, as opposed to born via the vaginal canal. So the research is showing basically that babies born via cesarean, in the long run, have a higher risk of things like allergies, intolerances, eczema, asthma. So this just goes to show the importance of maintaining a healthy gut microbiome, even vaginal microbiome, in pregnant women. So we support, we ask, let's say, women to take probiotics second trimester, third trimester, eat more, let's say, fermented foods, foods that are high in probiotics, so fermented vegetables, for example, things like kefir, yogurt if they're able to tolerate dairy, prebiotic foods. So probiotics are the bacteria. Prebiotics are the food for the bacteria. So prebiotics are things like onion, garlic, leek, asparagus. They're the food for the probiotics. So anything with fiber. Also anything with fiber. So And again, some research has shown that, when you compare, let's say, the microbiome of pregnant women, let's say, whose kids have, let's say, ended up with allergies compared to those who were born to women who don't have allergies. Yeah. So the microbiome of women, of the moms, was different. There was definitely some differences in terms of the microbiome and then the future risk of certain conditions in these infants or in these.
What was the difference?
It's the overgrowth, let's say, of certain species compared to others. Okay, so that dysbiosis that we discussed. Yeah. So bringing it back to a balanced state and promoting more of the positive bacteria, but also in breastfeeding. Okay, so breastfeeding, a lot of microbes get transported into the baby through breast milk. Breast milk has prebiotics as well, what we call human milk oligosaccharides. So those also feed the gut microbes of the baby. So we are trying to boost the baby's microbiome in order to make it, a healthy one, in order to boost their immunity. Remember that 2/3 of our immunity, 70 to 80% of our immune system lies in our gut. So when we have a healthy gut microbiome, this is supporting our immune system as well. A healthy gut supports a healthy immunity. So breastfeeding, as much as possible, when possible. And then when we start to wean the baby, when we start to give the baby, let's say, solid foods, that also, there's a major drastic shift in the gut microbiome when we start to introduce, let's say, fruits and vegetables. And also when we talk about the mom's maternal gut microbiome, some research has actually shown that an imbalanced gut microbiome can increase the risk of things like postpartum depression. Okay. So again, looking at the gut microbiome of women with postpartum depression and without postpartum depression, there are differences there. So this is why before the woman gets pregnant, it's always best to ensure that she has, she's healthy, but not only health. Sometimes we measure health in not necessarily the right way. So we want to go back to the gut, at the gut level, to make sure that before she gets pregnant, she's actually healthy at the gut level.
Prepare for that. Yeah.
Yeah. We look at gut microbes in different ways. Usually we use stool samples, very specific stool samples. There are different ways to look at gut imbalances. So, I tend to recommend them for my clients, especially those who are trying to conceive or those who are planning to conceive, just to make sure that, everything at the gut level is okay. But then, of course, we focus on maintaining nutritional status in general, all the extra vitamins and minerals.
So postpartum depression. So because of the hormone got imbalanced and it's affected from the gut. So that's how it led to the depression in a way, right?
You mentioned actually a very important point, which is hormones. The fact postpartum depression can be caused from so many things. The imbalance in hormones, gut microbes, but it could be very multifactorial. And then maybe no two women can have the same reason. So it really depends. But you mentioned hormones. Estrogen levels, for example, are also controlled at the gut level. So there's something called the estrobolome. So we have the microbiome, but the estrobolome. So it's part of the microbes or the gut bacteria that control estrogen. So when we are trying to get rid of estrogen, let's say, one of the ways we get rid of estrogen is through stool. But if there are specific bacteria that are present in our gut, they can produce certain factors or certain enzymes in the body that can cause this estrogen to be recycled. So if estrogen is being recycled, what's going to happen? You are going to end up with more estrogen than you need or that your body is able to get rid of. So this can cause things like estrogen dominance or imbalances in hormones that can happen to not only, let's say, women post-pregnancy, but during pregnancy hormonal imbalances, but women in general. So it's really important, again, to look at gut health when we talk about hormone imbalances. So
how can someone check their gut if it's balanced or imbalanced? Is there like a test or an expert?
So there are different tests that can be done. let's say a certain gastroenterologist, they can do certain tests to look for things like an overgrowth of bacteria in your stomach, or sometimes, so certain breath tests that can see if there's an imbalance in bacteria, either at the stomach level or at the small intestinal level. At more of the, let's say, large intestine or colon, which is where most of our bacteria is, there are different ways. Now, in functional medicine, we use comprehensive stool tests. So it's a stool sample, but it's a very comprehensive test, and it gives you that proportion of bacteria, of yeast. So not only, so our microbes are not only bacteria, but then there could be that yeast imbalance, things like candida, for example, certain parasitic infections. So we look at all of those using functional medicine testing. So we do, certain traditional tests, but also functional medicine tests that are now widely available nowadays. Yeah, but for these specific functional medicine tests, you have to, work with either a naturopathic doctor or a functional medicine health practitioner.
Okay, that's very nice. I never knew all of that. So basically, you are what you eat in a way.
Yes, but we always believe, and we always say that you are what you eat, but it's not only that, because we are what we eat, but what we digest, what we absorb, and what we detox, and what our gut microbes do for us. Because these gut bacteria, they have such important roles to play. Remember when I said that they are linked to all these diseases? So they produce certain factors, they can produce some vitamins, so they produce so many beneficial compounds if they are more towards the healthy bacteria. But if they're more towards the unhealthy bacteria, then they can produce a lot of compounds, something, for example, that we call lipopolysaccharides, LPS. Again, those can trigger conditions. So we can both be having the same meal, but the way I digest and the way you digest is different. My gut microbiome, which is very specific to me, can be, acting on this food in a different way than what your body or what your microbes are doing to this meal or this food. And of course, then our ability to get rid of everything. So we are what we eat, but we are what we digest, absorb, detox, and all the things that our gut microbes do for us as well.
That's true. Do you have any idea about the colic in babies, newborn?
Yeah. So colic in newborn, again, this is something I personally dealt with for a long time with my baby. Again, we spoke about, my premature baby. So in prematurity, it's even longer. So colicky babies, actually, there is research to show that there is that gut imbalance, okay, that can be triggering colic. So gut imbalance with specific bacteria. So this is why a lot of times you find doctors, nutritionists recommending probiotics. And so many babies can benefit from giving probiotics. So there are specific strains. So with probiotics, there are so many strains. So sometimes there are some strains that are beneficial for specific issues or health conditions. So with colic, there are definitely some strains that can help. But sometimes this doesn't cut it for, the baby is still struggling. So oftentimes a mom might have to eliminate certain foods that are likely to cause gas, even dairy. So we have to understand that it's something that's happening at the gut level, microbial imbalances, and probiotics could help.
Why does it happen to babies, like especially newborn, like in the first few months?
Remember, their gut is very immature. Their gut is super, super immature. And we always want to try, remember, there's that 4th trimester where we're trying to imitate everything that's happening in the womb outside. But I think the fact that, their digestive system is very fragile, still very immature. Breast milk actually is very easy to digest. So sometimes it can be caused if they are on formula, and it could be a sign that maybe the baby is not handling or tolerating the formula very well. So we might have to switch formulas. We might have to give a non, let's say, cow's milk based formula, or a more of a hydrolyzed, or where the proteins, everything's pretty much broken down to make it easier for the baby to digest. So the fact that their gut microbes as well are very basic, let's say, they don't have that diversity that adults do. So this is where we try and support it. I mean, it's very frustrating for adults. I've been there. I tried personally everything from baby massage to probiotics, to eliminating myself what I was eating. It is very frustrating. So there are things we can do for the baby, but sometimes it needs a bit of extra patience.
Some time and it will wear off.
Yeah. But with kids, what we feed them in the first 3 years of life is so critical. Because by the age of 3, this is where it's believed that their gut microbes resemble that of an adult. So when we feed them, a lot of vegetables, a lot of plant-based foods, a lot of fiber to feed those gut microbes, this is where we are really we're giving them, and we're boosting their gut microbes to protect them from future risk of disease. Because those imbalances at an early age have been linked to things like obesity, diabetes, allergies, asthma, eczema. So those 3 years of life, the first 3 years of life, are super, super critical. What we're feeding them, as opposed to giving them, all the fried foods, the sweet foods that feed the unhealthy microbes, we want to try and, again, move them towards the healthier options, keeping in mind that at that age they can be very picky.
So it's like you're building a structure.
We're building a structure literally from, at the foundational level. But this just shows the importance of our gut bacteria and what it can do for us at such an early stage in life.
Thank you, Farah, very much. Where can we find you?
Thank you so much for having me. So you can check out my Instagram, Wellness in Colors. And
Perfect.
So I'm available.
That's great. So you can find her on her Instagram, and also you'll find her on our Instagram page, Guiding Stars. And stay tuned for the next episode.